Hello guys, this is my first video after reaching the 1000 subscribers milestone, so I wanted to make it special. I held a poll in my communities tab to decide what was the video going to be about, and you can see how that went. Thus, we have the present video in all of its in-depth and juicy glory, letting you know how the average Joe fared in Palpatine's Sith Empire. During the movies and books, you usually get to look at the Empire's military and high ranking players, but there's not a lot of attention to how the average citizen lived or to how he perceived the shift from Empire to Republic. Luckily for us, there are books, comics, and content out there which allow us to learn this is a vital variable in understanding the intricate political situation of both the Republic and the Empire, and how complex this topic really is. As you can expect, Palpatine wouldn't wake up in the morning to have a morning stroll electrocuting and barbecuing peasants. And he wouldn't execute the kids who didn't want to eat their soup either, so how did the average citizen really live? Well, to put it simply, there were two main variables to consider: the race of the citizen and where he would live in the Empire. The Empire was a bit of a racist state and it treated non humans in a really bad way. Although, if you were human, you were probably getting privileges you didn't have before. On the other hand, if you were living close to the capital, you would have a better life than those living in outer worlds. The empire wasn't nearly as centralized as, say, empires on Earth. The worlds had complex governments, usually overseen by moths, and the influential people of those worlds could be more pro empire or less pro empire. This would also influence the planet's quality of life, as the Empire would reward their loyal supporters and make life harder for pro Republic planets. The average citizen could belong to three different classes: the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. Aliens were mostly in the lower class or below, not even being considered citizens. We're looking at the standard citizen here, so we'll take your run of the mill human, who was the most numerous species in Darth Sidious's Sith Empire and the dominant species in the Star Wars galaxies at the time. This is where it gets interesting. You see, if you were a human citizen who was loyal to the government, you'd be living very well and you would probably have ample room to support the Emperor, since quality of life mostly increased. You also have the fact that Palpatine was someone who was known as a politician who wanted order and peace. Darth Sidious carefully crafted this politician persona to be viewed as a man of the people, and he did so masterfully. People had lots of room to love him, except if you were one of the inhabitants of a planet the Empire occupied by force. The government was corrupt and kind of like feudalism, in which moths overseeing the planetary governments would treat the planets as if they were their fiefs. In fact, most people saw the politicians under Palpatine to be way worse than Palpatine himself, who was to many a hero. Why? Well, you can't forget that Sidious as Palpatine was the ambassador of the Comel sector who rose to senator, rising again to supreme chancellor and later emperor. He rose due to his competence and the fact that he always seemed to serve the people, even ending the biggest conflict the galaxy had seen for hundreds of years, the Clone Wars. The citizens who survived the Clone Wars were now enjoying peace and seeing all of the prosperity the Empire was bringing about. Say what you will about those factories and big corporations rising during the Empire's shift in policies to be less humanitarian and more economic, they did improve the overall quality of life for the average citizen, granted that at the expense of aliens and slaves. Then we have the state the Jedi Order was before the Empire came to pass. You see, the Jedi weren't a very active order by then, only solving diplomatic disputes and taking force sensitive children, so they probably had a lot of people hating them. Who wants their offspring to be taken forever by a mystic order who wants no emotional connections and was kind of obsolete by that time? Yeah, the average citizen is a simple mind. They aren't expected to learn everything the Sith Empire did in the past or what the Jedi were known for, and we see this countless times in the movies where the general public seems to know very little. As such, political opinion could potentially point out the Jedi as a tyrannical order who steals children or simply obsolete Shaolin monks. The Empire also enforced its laws very harshly, and crime, as well as piracy, decreased substantially. If we were to point out one thing that the average citizen hated was the corruption widespread in the government and the military, as well as the sanctioned crime against people who had less than friendly views of the empire. But the kicker to me is that the people wanted the Empire. Darth Sidious didn't make a coup. He announced the Empire to every politician in the galaxy in the middle of the Galactic Senate, and they answered with thunderous applause. Bottom line, we have two political lines of thought, and to the average citizen, they both look like legitimate opinions. The Empire supporter points out to lower crime rates, better quality of life, GDP growth, stability, and peace. The Republic supporter points out to increased corruption, less liberty, and more alien oppression. In the end, we can wager that the average citizen could fall to support one side or the other, but they probably didn't care, only caring about their lives. If you are human, you probably live better. If you're an alien, you probably live worse. On the other hand, generally speaking, you are getting less misery and more stability at the cost of less freedom and less liberty. This is a very complex topic, and I'd love to know what you think. Again, thank you for the 1000 subscribers. It's a pleasure to know you guys love what I'm doing. I love you all for it. So thank you, and may the Force be with you.